Jealousy, that fang tattoo. Last night on the patio, pocoa, patois between us, unseemly and peasant. Pleasant. Let's spread out the pent-up moment, pentimento, memento, a pact. Our stories spinto, no more Esperanto. P. So I can't see from where I am. Is it on screen? Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Great, but I'm not on screen, but you can
Yeah.
at least see the poems, right?
We can see you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Spin pin into spinto. Spin pin into spinto. Dear P, I take your point. I didn't mean to cut, but it's my stripe, my type. I'd rather shear than share. I wear a scarf to hide my scars. My scabs have scabs. My heart's a shard. I am that Scaramouche. I like a joust. My tattoo says keep out. I prefer eras to arias, you've guessed, a bard of scabbards, a chorus of cuirass. Our nocturnal skirmish was a junto. Just that. S. So as you can see, between page and screen is a book of poems that exist as letters between P and S as they try to iron out the boundaries of their relationship. They are epistolary in form, so they're written as letters in order to make us sort of peeping toms on this relationship, looking at this correspondence that isn't necessarily meant for our ears. Dear S, you blanch, I didn't mean to impale you with my pin, my origins to join, to stake a claim. But that route palest leads both ways, to palisade and pull, but also travel and travail. I ply this narrow palette not to palter, but to plate our letters, keeping pace. Let it lapse. Scabs can be peeled back. Pass. So as I was working on these poems, my starting place was the etymologies of the words page and screen. I wanted to see where page and screen came from in order to better understand how they relate to one another. So page comes from an Indo-European root that means to join. And that root gives us all kinds of words about connection. Peace and appease, pact, pax. Screen comes from a root that means to shine. So it gives us a lot of words that are militaristic in nature, like sword and shield. It would seem at first glance that page and screen are polar opposites. One of them, the pacifist, the other, the bellicose aggressor. But what I learned from these research into their etymologies was that there are ways in which the two overlap and are connected. Dear P, you give me space to undulate. Sharon, my best subject was always division. I like partition. You only get a portion of the stuff that makes me up or anyone. The rest hides. I own both sword and plowshare, sure. I lied sidle up to either side that held me, let slide my eye, oh yes, S. Between page and screen, a book speaks. In books, DNA is rose, eros by another nom. In between the page and the screen, the book speaks because that's where the reader stands. The poems of between page and screen don't exist until the reader enters the frame, until you're there to hold the book in your hands and open it up. If you only had the printed artifact, you couldn't read it. And if you only had the screen, you couldn't read it either. Ultimately, what gets between the page and the screen is the reader, for whom not only this book, but any book exists. Without a reader, poetry lies inert on the page. Whether it is a poem written in fragments from the Dow Jones, or whether it's poetry written with pen and ink. Here's our shield, your screen. It contains the Indo-European word root, scare, and some of its derivatives. Dear S, a screen is a shield, but also a veil. It's sheer and can be shorn. There's a neat gap between these covers, a gate through which you've slipped your tang. Paper cuts to swordsmith. Let's name this pagan pageant, these rows of lines or vines that link us together. P. So over the course of the book, this pageant plays out, and essentially as Paige and Screen wrestle with their relationship, they also perhaps come to terms. Paige, don't cage me. Why this mania to name what's between us? That way is carnage, carnal carnival. We share text's fleshy network, your trellis and my tendency to excoriate, your fang and my carnassials. We like leather, you have ivy, I've a bouquet of charnel carnations. Carry and incarnate, don't shoot the courier, ace, you're cute awry, S. So Paige and Screen are connected in that because Paige has that root of joining things together, it also gives us words that can have a kind of violence. Fang comes from the same root, and pin and impale. There is a desire to affix inherent in the notion of the page, which is from the Latin pagina as a trellis. It's actually a surface on which we train vines to grow. Whereas screen, because it comes from a root that is shining, can also be a very, flowing and sheer and diaphanous surface that beckons us to it. It doesn't have to be this opaque surface that shuts us out. Screen also comes from the same root as the word charcuterie, which is, of course, sliced cured meat. And in order to slice up this little piggy, you would need a sharp and shining object. Circa the rue accrue their creature chi, each recruit a heretic cur, a sheep uriter. Archer, cutie, a cute richer curia etcher. Airy, crutch, catcher, I rue, cash I rut, racier, shoot, accrue her it, capti hue air, ace their cur. Dear S, that trellis is a metaphor, it props me up. I propagate agate pages of paper argot, wrapped tropes. Be my abhor? What are boundaries anyway? P. Dear P, we're running out of words, so I'll be curt, curtle, and curtail my tale. You're a core, a shore, a sight. I regret the fight. Don't forget to write. S. And because it didn't seem right to let either P or S have the last word, it ends with a co-script, post-haste, post-haste. There is no postscript. Sleep tight. Thank you. So the next project I'd like to share with you, boy, I'm going to keep doing that, is not one that I've shared very often. It was designed for an installation. So Brad Baus, with whom I collaborated between Paige and Screen, he and I were approached by Site Projects, which is a granting organization in New Haven, Connecticut, that sponsors public art projects. They're specifically looking for work that is site-specific and that is publicly accessible in the city of New Haven. So they approached us to do something for the New Haven Free Public Library, which has a main branch right on the New Haven Green, a really well-trafficked area, and then all of these branch libraries around the city. So given the opportunity to access this space, we thought, well, how can we do something new to put the word in the reader's hands, create a kind of interactive poetic experience that might excite people about reading? So we thought about the library and what the library is for. The library is kind of a space you go to time travel. You look into books, you read about the past, and it allows you to sort of access that past and put yourself in it. And the books that are on the shelves in the library have been on the shelves long enough that many generations of people before you have touched their spines and opened their pages. And that is kind of one of the rare and special things about a book object, is that it can literally be passed person to person, picking up little bits of our DNA and our scribblings in the margin. We can totally leave DNA on our digital devices too. I'm not like fetishizing the book, but that is one way in which the library functions. So given that access to the library, we came up with the idea for this project, Whispering Galleries. And Whispering Galleries, what it is it's a Whispering Gallery is a space that is domed, where people standing at opposite ends of the room can whisper to one another and hear one another very clearly. It's the shape of that dome that allows sound to travel across the surface. Our project uses a technology called the leap motion, which is this little controller I have here. It's about the size of a pack of gum, and it creates another kind of whispering gallery. What this device does is using, maybe you can see 3 red dots on here. Those dots are projecting a dome of infrared light above this, this small controller. And when I put that down on a flat surface, it can detect any gesture that takes place in that infrared dome, allowing me to control what happens on the screen. So we asked ourselves, well, what voice from the past do we want to give access to? And after doing a little research, I came upon this diary of an unknown sales clerk from New Haven from 1858. 1858 seems like a nondescript year, but it's on the cusp of the Civil War. And what I learned from reading the diary is that it turns out that there were actually some interesting historical events that happened that year, including the laying of the transatlantic telegraph cable, which was kind of a milestone for long-distance communication. So that seems sort of like there was something in that diary reaching out from the past to say, I have a voice that needs to be unlocked. It's also drawn to it because it's an anonymous voice, and this person works in a dry goods store, which means they're really at the heart of their community. In 1858, if you needed thread to sew, if you needed hay to feed your horses, if you needed a warm body to come and help you mow your field, you went to the dry goods store. If you needed to post a letter, that's where you went. So I also like the fact that that person basically provides a locus for learning a lot about a small New England community in that period. So Whispering Galleries gives us access to this person's anonymous diary. I'm going to see if I can load it up here. When visitors to the installation, which took place in the library, when they came up to our installation, this is what they saw. Their own sort of domed reflection in this kind of virtual whispering gallery, and an entry from this diary. Oh, I'm sorry, I totally just did that. My bad. So I'll give a little bit of a flavor for what that experience is like, and hopefully that's legible on the screen. If it doesn't want to, it's all good. Thank you so much. All right, I'll move on. In the shop, run handles on the machine, etc. In the evening, went to Martin Harrison to hear him play violin with a company of others. Came home at 11:15, moonlight. In the shop, and shaved handles, fitted up for bidding with knife, father shaved heads 1 inch, new machine, F. Daniels. In the evening, went to H. Palmer to get rosin for violin. Wind blows. In the shop, shaved handles most of the day. Father worked on machine. Charles Palmer fixed a fork handle. Father went to bring mother home, carried her to Uncle William's. Came home about 6. Miss Bunnell was there. I went to meeting in the evening. One of the things that drew me to this diary was the importance of the hand in this person's work. Every day, he's either shaving handles to make axes and hammers and other tools to make fence posts. And then every evening, he's making music by hand, playing the violin, singing in the local choir. In the shop, fitted and shaved handles, Mr. Russell came and sawed blind slats. Daniel went to buy, came to shop and left his baskets for sawdust. I went to Mr. Woods in the eve and called. At home, stayed in the house most of the day. I wrote the music to a song. Dearest spot of earth to me is home. Spent some time in reading, etc. Miles came to our house. In the evening, I went to Harrison's lecture, language. So this author, this anonymous author, is a kind of artist, but an unacknowledged one, and one who sort of represses the creative impulse, even in his own accounting for his daily comings and goings. We wanted to give the reader a chance to reach their hand out to this anonymous author. In the morning at house, went to the hall a while and helped about the fixings, started about 12 o'clock for Charles Foote's to get a gown, lost my journey. Mr. Foote was in town by Dr. Beardsley, meeting in Eve, rehearsal. And at the month of March, in this diary, this person moves from his father's handle-making shop to the public dry goods store and takes on a new life. Sales clerk. I entered upon a new business, went into the grocery department of E.E. Bishop as clerk. Mr. N. Evarts and Mr. Thomas Plant first customers. In the evening, the choir master met for hall. I enter upon a new art. We ask the reader, by extending their hand, to brush the dust from this diary, just as this author sweeps the dust out of the shop every morning, to conduct the waves of dust, revealing poems hidden within the diary that tell an alternative story of the hand's relationship to creative practice. In the hand, to play, a company of moonlight. In the hand, new machine, a wind blows. The hand, a machine, to bring about evening. The hand came to ask for dust. The music of spent time, our language. In the morning, we start a lost journey. I enter upon a new art. In trade, I weigh rough goods of evening. I work seeds and beds, I even up. I swept out plenty, I swept out the chamber, the afternoon weather, the evening prayer. Consider man came back a bough, oh, good wood. In the morning, I prepared myself. In the morning, my side was new. Morning weeping in a great nothing, no home, no help, no night watch. This was such a sad diary entry. I mean, he witnessed the death of his boss's daughter, and it fascinated me that in this diary, like, hugely traumatic losses take place alongside the births of cows, going sleighing in the winter time. It's a very different relationship to daily lived life. All of that was part of the way you measured your time, by the comings and goings of the members of your town. There's no distance here. I sweep to suspend dust, I send by post. The bells were all on fire, and fire a wrung cloud. I went into the ocean to play the organ. I swept a pleasant party to the sea to sing. I opened the palm, a paper seed, a nest. Oh, 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 oh. It rained in measures, I commenced to sing. I conducted the weather. The morning not gone, I started a letter. People at work today outside sing. A stormy page, a ledger swept of rain. The weather carried a hand to the window. The moon, bright and steady, went to collect the light that came near. Still water, we watch broken sunshine a while. Time a haven, made a home. It is done, some home to come. We hail one to the other, unable to come in. So that's where the diary stops. It goes from January 1 to December 31, giving us a little bit of a cadence of what life was like in 1858 over the course of the year. There's sleigh riding and haymaking, there are parties to the sea, there are 4th of July fireworks, and the poems invite the reader to use their hand to reach out to this hand from the past. The last thing that I wanted to share with you is a very recent project called ABRA. ABRA is a collaborative chapbook, artist book, physical book, you name it. It's kind of a long-term hybrid project. ABRA started as a print-based collaboration with the poet Kate Durbin. We were writing poems together, trying to weave our two voices into one that would be different from either of us, something that neither of us would have done working alone. So the idea was to create a living text spoken by a kind of post-human prophet figure. And that's how ABRA was born. But one of the things we realized in the process of working on ABRA was that we sort of wanted ABRA to really truly exceed our capacities as authors to control her. We didn't want the attention drawn back to ourselves. We really wanted to put this text in the reader's hands. So we got a grant from the Center for Book and Paper Arts at Columbia College Chicago to make what they were calling expanded artist books. They specialize in handmade, limited edition, beautiful books, carefully bound, using beautiful materials. But they wanted to see what would happen if you told a bunch of book artists to make something for an iPad. So we got a chance to collaborate with Ian Hatcher, who's an artist and performer and poet in New York. And ABRA is what came from that collaboration, a digital living text version of ABRA. There is a trade edition of ABRA, which is available from 1913, and that lets you read the poems as we compose them. You page through the book, and there's a kind of animation that happens like a flip book. We wanted that animation to spread to the app itself and give the reader a chance to control the text. This is ABRA. Heaving tumor trellis up the flesh wall to evolve, implode, tide road bristle blossom, nibble necklace, ridden taste, transplant desire, after rupture, tar, stars restart, our wrapped throats rising, our wrapped throats stirring, our wrapped throats, tumor-wrapped throats, rarities. ABRA begins mutating on its own as soon as you open the app. The text as we wrote it begins to change, and the reader can accelerate that change using tools that are at the top of the screen. So if I'm selecting the mutate tool, any word that I touch will transform to a word that shares some sonic similarity, or in some cases, a literal similarity. Sucking to signing. Signing sig. Milk grass. lick ass. Milk C. Multiply, age, eat, was. I can't predict, clearly, what's going to happen when I touch Abra. And that's part of the fun of the project, is that it wants to take on a new life in the reader's hands. So there's a dial at the bottom of the screen that the reader can use to navigate to another point in the text. It's sort of one continuous poem, and from one stanza to the next, any words that are shared between stanzas will animate into a new place in the poem. So if I go from this poem to just the next one over on the dial, you'll see the words open up and new words enter into the spaces between them. I have some other tools for casting magical spells in Abra. I can erase text by running my finger through the lines. I can prune text to close up those gaps. And I can graft new language here. And anywhere I touch, my language will be painted into Abra's vocabulary. Anything I teach Abra can come back to me too on subsequent readings. Abra will draw from the language I teach her when she's mutating text, unless I completely reset. If I cast the Kadabra spell, something unexpected will happen, often keyed to things that are on the screen. There are certain magical spells that can only be cast when there are particular words available. You can graft language into Abra using any character set that's on your device. So one of the things that has been most exciting to me is seeing people write in Arabic and in Korean and in Babayin, and posting images of those on Twitter. Just a chance to see that Abra doesn't want to be even tied down to one character set, or for that matter, to text. Abra clearly also likes images. Our light strings a sear soiree, synapses humming to cradle us pink in stitches up, tussles for the yoke of knit hour into new affinities, naughty frill network spin, toy affairs, curtain fadings, holes patched to our color, spotted and comb speaker ample stretched self thin, speak an annex, lilac noil, neat nexus web at of. Fits counterfeit to in busy bustle connection. Speak, speak witches, opposite hive, right twin at nexa. Thread, speak white clearly reading as wed clearly nurses. Abra really is the product of collaboration, and the other two people who made this project possible are the poet Kate Durbin and the poet Ian Hatcher. And normally performing from Abra is a fun collaborative process where we make crazy poems to one another and then hand them off to the next person to try to perform. So I won't subject you to that, but I do hope that if you have access and you're interested at all in playing with this kind of text toy, that you'll download the app. It's free, it's on iPhone and on iPad, and it allows you to save your poems by making screenshots. You hit the share button, it'll bring up a screenshot, or you can screenshot it the way you do your various online feeds. And I hope that if you do, you'll share some of it with us on Twitter so that we can share it out to the world. Thanks again for your time. Thanks for having me.
Before you depart, though, there are also books for sale right on that table, so if you're interested in any of Amaranth's books or projects, she'll be selling those in a little bit after she answers some questions.
All right, thank you everyone. That's it for the first installment of the Creative Writing Reading Series. Another round of applause for